Hello, this is an introduction to Google Analytics. And in this tutorial, we're going to recognize the role of Web Analytics, understand how Web Analytics works, explain the role of sessions and filters, recognize the Google Analytics account structure, and understand how data is presented in Google Analytics. So we'll start with a broad definition of digital analytics. And digital analytics is the analysis of qualitative and quantitative data from your business and competition to drive continual improvement of the online experience that your customers and potential customers have, which translates to your desired outcomes. So part of digital analytics is about metrics to monitor and improve different areas of your customer's online experience. And there are analytics for different channels. For example, there's the likes of Facebook Insights and Twitter Analytics for metrics relating to your social media presence. And then there's Web Analytics, which provides insight into the activity of your site's visitors. And site visitor activity fits into a purchase funnel. You acquire site visitors through different channels, such as search, social media, and display. Behavior is when site visitors engage with your site in some way. And conversion is when a visitor becomes a customer and transacts with your business. Many different aspects of the funnel can be measured through Web Analytics. So, for example, you can see which of your digital channels are acquiring the most visits. Or, for example, you can see which geographic region is acquiring the most visits and online sales. And then consider running additional campaigns in these locations. Web Analytics presents acquisition, behavior, and conversion metrics in reports. You can analyze these reports to gain a better understanding of your customers and then try out new solutions to improve your business. So different kinds of businesses can benefit from Web Analytics. Publishers can use it to create a highly engaged audience and to better align on-site advertising with their visitors' interests. E-commerce businesses can use analytics to understand their customers' online purchase behavior and better market their products and services. And lead generation sites can collect user information so that sales teams can connect with prospects. So Web Analytics can answer questions relating to our campaign and site objectives. It can tell us where visitors came from, the pages they landed on, the paths they took through the site, which conversion goals they completed, and which of our digital campaigns are working well. It can also help you improve your visitors' user experience. By looking at different metrics and by looking at the paths visitors took through your site, Web Analytics gives you a basis on which to make changes, and then come back later to assess whether these changes have improved things. This is largely dependent, though, on setting up conversion goals, which is something we'll look at later. There are many web analytics solutions available. However, most of them use the same terminology and report the same metrics. We're going to look at Google Analytics, and this is primarily because it's a market leader and also because it's free. So why is it free? Well, this is mainly because Google wants you to have a successful website. And they want this because you're only going to spend money on advertising if your site is a success. If you aren't making money, you're unlikely to be handing over cash to Google for advertising. Worth noting, though, is because it's a free tool, Google does not provide support. There is support, however, for its Big Brother Enterprise solution in return for a hefty annual fee. Next, we'll have a quick look at how Web Analytics works. When you sign up for Google Analytics, you're supplied with a snippet of tracking code, a cookie. This snippet of code needs to be added to the HTML of each page on your site. Then, whenever someone visits a page, the tracking code sends a message to Google and the visitor's activity is recorded. The activity is then processed and shown in Google Analytics reports for you to view. You can start to see things like how many visitors came through different channels, or how many people went to enroll on a course, plus information such as the type of browser, operating system, and device the visitors were using, along with their geographic location and demographic information such as age, gender, and interests. So the crucial aspect here is the tracking code, and there's a couple of options for adding it to your site. You can add the code to the HTML of every page individually, or you can use another Google tool called Tag Manager. This tool allows you to create a tag container, which again is a snippet of code that needs to be added to every page in your site. However, the benefit here is that whenever you want to add new tags to pages, such as a conversion tracking code for AdWords, you can add it to your container through the Tag Manager tool without having to touch any of the site's code. So control of the tracking code moves from the IT department to the marketing department. Next, we'll briefly look at the role of sessions and filters within Google Analytics. Every time a page loads, the tracking code will collect and send updated information about the user's activity. Google Analytics groups this activity into a period of time called a session. A session begins when a user navigates to a page that includes the Google Analytics tracking code, and a session ends after 30 minutes of inactivity. And if the user returns to a page after a session ends, a new session begins. When the tracking code collects data, it packages up the information and sends it to Google Analytics to be processed into reports. But there are also configuration settings that allow you to customize how data is processed. For example, you might want to apply a filter to make sure that your data does not include any internal company traffic, or that it only includes data from a particular country or region that's important to your business. However, an important point here is that once Analytics has collected and processed the data, it's stored in a database where it cannot be changed. So any data that's been filtered out will never be available. Now that you generally know how Google Analytics collects data, let's look at the Analytics account structure. Google Analytics accounts are set up hierarchically. Each account can have multiple properties, and each property can have multiple views. To give this some context, at the account level, you might set up an account for Australian College of Marketing. Then add two properties, one for our main website and a second for the study portal. The views let you apply configuration settings to determine what data you want to include, exclude, or modify when it's collected and processed. So you might have a view that includes all data and another view that filters out all internal company data. And it's important to have that all data view so that you'll always have a complete and filtered version of the data in case something goes wrong with one of the filtered views. You can also assign permissions to Google Analytics users at the account, property, or view level. Each level inherits permissions from the level above it. So for example, if you have access to an account, then you'll have the same access permissions to the properties and views in that account. But if you only have access permissions for a view, then you won't have permission to modify the property or account associated with that view. If you find that there's some aspect of Google Analytics that you can't access, then chances are that you don't have sufficient user permissions. Finally, we're going to take a look at how data is presented in Google Analytics. The reports fall into a few different main categories, including acquisition, behaviour, and conversion reports. And within each category, there's an overview report. This example is the acquisition overview report, which tells you about the different channels that brought visitors to the site. For example, you can see how many visitors came to the site through paid search, organic search, email, and social media. And below the overview report, you can then go down a level into more detail. This example shows more detail about the visitors acquired through social media. It gives you the metrics about the visits through each individual social media channel. Google Analytics also allows you to put together snippets of information from lots of different reports, all together in the one place, in a dashboard. This means you can quickly visualize and report the metrics that are most important to you. So you might set up a dashboard specifically for social media activity, or for the metrics relating to blog posts, or for metrics about conversion, or for a specific campaign or channel, for example. Every report and dashboard is made up of dimensions and metrics. Dimensions are the attributes of your data. Here, the dimension city indicates the city, for example Melbourne or Sydney, from which a session originates. Metrics are the quantitative measurements. The metric sessions is the total number of sessions. The metric pages per session is the average number of pages viewed in each session. And in most analytics report, you can change the dimension or add a secondary dimension. So for example, adding browser as a secondary dimension to the above table would result in this. Along with the primary dimension of city, there's now the secondary dimension browser, which means there's now a breakdown of each city according to the browsers used by the visitors. And another example. This time the primary dimension is social network and the secondary dimension is device category, which can be mobile, desktop or tablet. The metrics visible here are sessions and page views. So you can see a breakdown by social media network through which the visitor came to the site. And this is further broken down by the device type they were using. So in summary, we've taken a look at the role of web analytics and recognised how web analytics works. We've explained the role of sessions and filters and looked at the Google Analytics account structure and how Google Analytics presents data.